You're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. Presented by CMH Heli Skiing and Fat Tire Amber Ale.
Yeah, well, welcome to the Low Pressure Podcast. We're glad to finally have you. I wish I was sitting across the table from you, but this is the next best thing. Cheers to you.
Cheers to you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. So, what's going on? Where are you?
I'm in my wind down the wrong tube. I'm in my studio apartment in Ketchum, Idaho.
Yeah, sweet. How far away is that from the mountains?
On the bus, I think it takes 3 minutes. Walking, maybe 10.
3. That's awesome.
Yeah, the bus stop's just across the street.
What mountains?
It's
like what mountain is?
Bald Mountain is the ski resort. So Sun Valley Resort has 2 mountains: Bald Mountain, which is the main ski area, and then Dollar Mountain, which is the beginner hill / terrain park. And my favorite place to go in the morning with Rustler. We skin up it and ski a fresh corduroy down like at least 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and that's
One
like
more
10
quick
minutes
thing.
away.
One more quick thing. The little window, put it up kind of near where your camera lens is.
The window?
Yeah. Are you looking at like whoever's talking?
Yeah, I was looking at you.
Okay. Yeah. Put the window of whoever's like, you can move it and put it like right next to where your camera is. Does that make sense?
Like that? So I should be looking at
because then you're kind of looking at me, because before you're just looking down in the corner.
Oh.
It's a work in progress. I'm going to add it into the thing. All right, I'm going to cut back in. 3 minutes to go skiing.
Yes.
That's awesome. Although I live like pretty close to, so I can't really complain. But and what's it called? Bald Mountain?
Yeah. So it's Sun Valley Resort, and it's Bald Mountain is the.
Oh, it's at Sun Valley. So I've never been to Sun Valley, so I don't really know exactly how it works.
Yeah. So Sun Valley is the resort, and then Ketchum is the town. Sun Valley is also a town, and Sun Valley is where the first ski lift in North America was. I don't know the year exactly, so don't quote me on it.
I asked you to become prepared.
The locals are definitely going to call me out on that one. So it was the first ski lift in North America. Sun Valley is where all the celebrities went to ski. And there's 2 little ski hills, you could call it, in the area. So Bald Mountain is where the steeper, more advanced terrain is. And then there's Dollar Mountain, where they had the terrain park, the half pipe, and the beginner hill. And that's about 10 minutes from my house. And that's in Sun Valley.
Is that one more expensive? Is that one more expensive? The Dollar Mountain?
No, so you get your ski pass works at both.
Okay.
Yeah, I've only used my ski pass at Dollar like once or twice for I think like spring pond skimming. But Rustler and I skin up Dollar at like 4 times a week.
That's cool. Did you name him Rustler after like the lodge, the Alta Lodge?
Not the lodge, but the run. Alta's High Rustler.
Ah, that's
High
cool.
Boy.
High Boy
Is also known as High Rustler.
Oh,
Yeah.
See, I've skied Alta. See, I need to learn. See, it's funny that we were saying before about how the borders are closed. And this year I'm like, I want to go down and I want to ski more of these zones and I want to learn more about them. And I want when someone talks about a run like that, I want to be like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, you know?
Yeah.
Rather than just kind of, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
I love Alta so much.
Where are you from? You're not from Idaho, are you?
No, I was born and raised in Vail.
Really?
Yep. Vail, the town, not Vail Resorts.
It's the same though, isn't it? Oh yeah.
The town of Vail went through what everyone else is going through as far as, Vail buying them and building big hotels and whatnot. But yeah.
Well, Whistler's always been kind of the same. Like Vail was always our biggest competitor, like for mountain wise. And then when Vail bought Whistler, everyone in town went, oh no. And it was okay until just recently, actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people have just lost their jobs for whatever it is. I try not to comment too much on it.
No,
definitely
not. I don't either. But the town of Vail is home. The mountain of
Yeah,
Vail is what raised me.
the town's awesome. I was there for the first time last year. I went. There's like a Fat Tire house in like there's a house there that they rent that used to be a house that one of the, like some president used to go to, and it's got all these crazy like little alleys and compartments and like different like secret rooms. Like it's really strange house. It's a cool house, but it's like super weird. But that's my Vail experience.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
weird houses.
Kids in college always were like, and I didn't realize it. Like, I'm sure, like, the same as for kids growing up in Whistler, like, that's just home. Like, know any different. And when I told kids in college I was from Vail, they're like, no one actually like lives in Vail. That's like living in Disneyland or something. And I was like, what?
Some people live in Disneyland.
Really?
I don't know. Do they? I would. I would assume maybe.
Maybe like the employees, I guess.
What made you leave? Vail's an awesome town, and the mountain's pretty cool. Like, why did you peace out?
You're spot on. It's an awesome town. The mountain is super fun. Family is still there. But I went to college in Montana, and then I worked in Montana, and then I moved to Salt Lake City for another job and found Alta and fell in love with Alta. And then after that, I got another job in Sun Valley. That was how I ended up here, was a nursing job. But when I moved to Salt, I wanted to work in a level 1 trauma center because I wanted more work experience. And if I had done that in Colorado, I would have been 2 hours from the mountains plus with traffic. And so Salt Lake was kind of the closest level 1 trauma center to skiing. And so that's why I made that move. And then I got overwhelmed by city life and moved up here to Sun Valley.
That's pretty cool. And then there's a trauma center nearby.
No, it's a small critical access hospital. And my mom kind of asked like, why not just move home? But I wasn't. Vail is expensive to live in. Like, I mean, Sun Valley is as well, but it's still a bit more affordable and there's more housing options than Vail. And I don't know. I really have fallen in love. Vail probably has great backcountry. I've never actually skied much of it, but I've really fallen in love with backcountry skiing and quick access backcountry. Sun Valley has some really quick approaches, kind of like Alta did. And so that's what I've really enjoyed about living here. And I don't think Vail, from my experience, has that. But again, I hadn't really skied in the backcountry since I moved away from home.
No, it's kind of something you developed after you left, hey? And so I noticed that basically every major move or life decision that you've made has heavily relied on your ability to ski.
Yes.
Which is what I tell people about my life as well. I haven't made quite as many moves, but it's that key focus is there, right?
Yeah. And
so go ahead.
I was going to say with that, it's like, I actually didn't know that was my key focus when I moved to Montana for college. Thank God my parents knew me better than I did. I just skiing and growing up in Vail was like, playing soccer. It was like a high school sport that I did. It was part of life. Like, it wasn't something I like thought about doing, or it was a treat. I mean, it was a treat to go and do. Now I look back and I was like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. But it was just like an everyday routine part of life. And so when I was looking at colleges, I didn't like factor that in. I looked at Montana State was my only college that was close to skiing. And I was like looking in Southern California and upstate New York. And my parents, who had already purchased my graduation present, which was a beacon, shovel, and probe, were like, oh God, I hope she picks Montana. And like in the end, they like had me look at it twice. They took me skiing there, and I can't thank them enough. Like, I cannot imagine like being in Southern California. I would not fit in.
What if though that you decided that, and then they made a quick turnaround and ended up taking all that stuff back to the store, and then ended up buying you like a surfboard, and maybe you'd be a pro surfer.
Maybe I'd be a surfer. I don't know. I love the mountains. Like, my soul is drawn to the mountains, and so.
Do you think like when you're growing up, just having the privilege of growing up in a place like that, you maybe took it for granted a little bit because you didn't know any better?
100%. And I like really look back on that now, like, especially when I describe it to other people, it's like, yeah, I went, in the winter, my school was really geared towards outdoor education. And I went skiing every day. Like that was just part of school. Like your elective was either telemark team, race team, Nordic team. And then on Fridays was all school ski Friday. So the entire school got out at noon to go skiing. And so it was just like part of life. Like it wasn't like skiing when we would go on like vacations, it felt like a privilege. But like growing up there, it felt like it was how it was supposed to be.
Yeah, right? You didn't know any better.
No, I had no idea.
It's fascinating because like I've been in town long enough now that I know a bunch of kids that were kind of some of the first like real full generation of kids that grew up here. And a lot of them are like, I got to get out of here. And they'll go to the city, right? Because it's new and fascinating. And it's the opposite, right? People a lot of time from the city, they'll come to a small mountain town. But for them, it's like vice versa. And there are a handful that kind of follow your same experience. But I don't think it's as much as people listening to this show would think. Like, oh, if I grew up in a mountain town, man, I'd be all over it. I'd never leave.
Yeah.
It's not really the case. I guess it's what you know and what's different and what's new.
Totally. And like also looking at kids these days, like some of them, like, gosh, Kai Jones, for example, like really living up to like the mountain town. I ran into him on Teton Pass this fall and I was like, I bet this kid, like, I think he knows what he's doing and he's probably grateful for it. But the fact that he can like get dropped off on Teton Pass on a Monday afternoon, like,
he's got the right genes though for it too. He was born into the right family.
I know, it's amazing.
Like, my uncle Jeremy Jones.
Yeah.
My dad only started like one of the biggest like ski media outlets in the world. You know what I mean? Like
totally. And I'm sure he's super grateful, but it's just like it's a part of life. Like it's just probably feels normal to him.
It's interesting. I like having conversations with people about that where I'd like to kind of see where he's at now, but then also see where he's at when he's like 15, 16, because he's going to be shit hot skier. He already is. He's like 12 and he's already just slaying it. And everyone's going to want a piece of him. Do you know what I mean? Like he's going to have that attention on him. And I'd like to kind of see, it's like the child actor syndrome, like the Miley Cyruses or the Britneys, and you watch him go off the rails for a little bit, but then they right the ship eventually. So I wonder, how that's going to work out with him there. Cause I know he's got, a good support around him, like he'll be grounded. Like I'm sure his dad or like even like Dirchie. Dirchie was on the show last year and he's kind of like his big brother kind of thing, or like Uncle Dirchie or something, big brother or whatever. So he's got a lot of guys that kind of keep him on the right path, but it'll be fascinating to kind of watch that arc.
That's what made me think of it as I listened to your Dirty episode and I was like, wow, that kid, like just the life he's growing up, I feel like I can relate well. I mean, not obviously the same because I wasn't doing ski movies or whatnot, but just like having that mountain as your playground in your backyard is like so fortunate.
Oh, absolutely. Like I was fairly fortunate. Like I grew up in Vancouver. So we have 3 mountains that are like just hovering above the city, really. And then Whistler, where I live now, is like only an hour and a half away. So I was fortunate enough to have access to them. But I lived in the suburbs, so it was like every couple of weeks maybe we'd go skiing, that sort of thing. And it was just enough to really want to plant the seed and not enough for me to be satisfied with it. And then the same thing, life choices. Things changed and so you went to school for nursing, right?
Yep, for nursing.
Which is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because there's a few things. Obviously, there's kind of a big deal going on in the world right now, the global pandemic. And I kind of wanted to talk to you about like how that all tied in. Like, did you choose? And I think you may have already answered this, or we could deduce the answer. But you said you weren't really going into nursing because you said you're planning on maybe Montana or Southern California to be able to ski, but it's something that kind of reemerged after.
Yeah. So Montana was like kind of a final decision. And then you pick your major, you pick whatever orientation group you're a part of. And I really loved Grey's Anatomy growing up. I thought Grey's Anatomy was like the best. It was my favorite show on TV. I watched it every Thursday with the girls that I did high school ski racing with. It was like our Thursday thing before our ski race on Friday is we'd watch Grey's Anatomy. We'd have a sleepover with pizza. And I just loved Grey's Anatomy. I thought that was like the coolest
Isn't it still on?
And I think, I remember like growing up passing like the hospital. I drove by the hospital every day to school and the helipad for like the life flight every day. And I think I always like thought that was cool, but was never like, Mom, I'm going to be a nurse when I grow up. I think it was just like, after I liked Grey's Anatomy, I was like, oh, I want to do something in the medical profession. And then I went to the pre-med orientation at school at Bozeman. And I was like, Mom, I do not want to be in school for that long. Like, this is, really grueling. I'm a good student. I'm not a great student. And I don't want to be in school for 8 years. And she's like, well, let's just go look at the nursing building and check out their program. Like, okay. Again, thank God my parents knew me. And so I went and looked at it and did the orientation, and it was 4 years. You got a job afterwards. I liked the classes. They were similar to the pre-med classes. And then from there, I did a senior project on the different roles between a doctor and a nurse. And I followed around an orthopedic surgeon from the Steadman Hawkins Clinic and his nurse. And just kind of compared and contrasted kind of what they did on a day-to-day basis. And I really took to the nurse because she had, the most patient contact, I thought, and I really like being around people and talking to people. And so she had the most direct patient care. And yeah, so then from there, I was more psyched on nursing. I got along really well with all my classmates. We were kind of just in the same wheelhouse. None of them skied, none. And then, yeah, it worked out really well. I did have to go to Billings, Montana for my 2 years of upper division clinicals. And that was a really hard transition for me. When I found out I had to do that, I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I'm switching programs. Like, I'm not leaving Bozeman. And she's like, Lucy, stick with it. Like, I don't know what else you were going to do. Just stick with it. It's 2 years. And I ended up actually really enjoying Billings because Red Lodge was only an hour away from it, which is a super cool little small ski area. It's just one of those grassroots couple lifts. You see everyone in the base area, not corporate, really awesome. And so that was an hour. And so I found some friends that I could go skin and then go to class. And so that worked well in my routine. And I graduated in 4 years with my bachelor's. And once I graduated, I was like, wow, I only have to work 3 days a week. That means
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's that beginning of that question was kind of where I was going. It's just a serendipitous outcome, right? I figured I can be a nurse and I'll work 3 full 24-hour shifts, and then I got 4 days off to
totally. And I feel like a lot of people, I have a lot of friends going back into nursing, not to toot my own horn, but I think they've seen my lifestyle and are like, oh, that.
They're like, shit.
Like my sister, she's doing that. She's like, you play and you have a career. So I realized that kind of in the last bit of nursing school, I was competing skiing and then juggling school. All of my teachers were super understanding. I found that I could have a balance between the two that final year of nursing school. And then when I graduated, God, I wish I had the energy now that I did then, because I was working night shifts, and I would go straight from my night shift to Bridger Bowl if it was a good snow day, ski for a few hours until 11, and then go to sleep, wake up at 6 p.m. and then work, and then drive to Salt Lake City. Or I just squeezed it all in. And then on the 4 days, I'm like, great, I have 4 days off. Where can I take a trip to? And it worked out super well. And it's continued to work out super well. So I'm so grateful that I randomly picked a career that I love and that works well with my other passion.
Yeah, I was wondering. That's why I was kind of like, was this a pre-planned thing,
No,
or it was like
it's just like,
it honestly sounds like you're just kind of floating in your wind, and then mom and dad would just kind of point you in the right direction.
yeah,
And
I
then
would
you
say
just
so. And like, I had a great grandmother that was a nurse, but like, there are no medical professionals in the family. Like, if I got hurt, mom was always like, okay, here's some ibuprofen, like, tough it out. Like, we're not like a medically inclined family.
Walk it off.
Yeah,
Suck it up. Walk it off. So you said that you were competing.
Mm-hmm.
Before we even get to that, you used to be a tally skier, correct? Let's just get that out of the way now.
I was a tele skier through and through, and it still like has a very large piece of my heart, and is why
I was gonna say, I thought you were gonna say I have very large quads.
I probably did. Like,
I
tried it last year, and I was like, how did I do this?
I don't understand. Like as you know, most skiers think tele skiers are kind of kooks. But
they do.
It's because we don't understand them. They have just as much fun as we do. If you're a tally skier and you're listening, don't be upset. Like, I'm not bagging on you that much. We don't understand what we don't understand. But like, they have a great time. It's just, I can't imagine how strong their legs are. Like, you're doing lunges down the entire mountain the whole way.
I must have been, I can't even remember. Like, it didn't feel like it was any harder. Granted, I didn't alpine ski for probably 6 straight years. So
You're just a straight tele skier?
Oh, I was
for 6
straight
years?
tele skier.
Did you have like a whole group of friends that were all tele skiers and like?
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Let her go. She's good.
So in high school, I think it was 2 of the teachers that started it. There was a telemark team, and there wasn't a free ride team because free ride wasn't like a thing yet. So there's a telemark team, an alpine race team. Rustler, come here.
What's your dog's name?
His name's Rustler.
Oh, that's right, Rustler. We talked about this already.
Hold on, just 1 second.
Yeah, no problem. Russ wants to get on the show, everybody.
So I did I did a telemark team Mondays and Wednesdays, and race team Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. And the telemark team was like the opportunity to go free skiing. And it was telemark, I think, because of these teachers, but also because of the backcountry program at my school. It was all telemark gear that they had, because that was backcountry gear.
Yeah. Yeah. Because back then they didn't really have the, I guess, the AT.
No, and especially for kids. So the school had a whole slew of leather telly boots. And I started on leather telly boots.
Oh my God, really? Like the 1950s, 60s style telly boots?
And they had purple laces. I had purple skis with pin bindings and leather boots.
That's crazy.
That was in 5th.
You can handle. You can figure them out if you want.
I think I need to.
Rustler's going outside. He wanted to get in on the conversation.
No, it's just every time I sit still, he is like, "Oh, you're sitting still. Pay attention to me."
Yeah. Well, whatever, man. I don't blame him. Either that, although, did you notice that he started getting worked up when you started talking about being a tele skier? Maybe he doesn't approve.
I don't know if he approves. He doesn't know me as a tele skier.
That's why he's like, "What are you talking about?"
But yeah, so anyway, long story short, when it was time to go to college, I had slalom skis, GS skis, and telemark skis. And telemarking was my free ride. So I just took my telemark skis, and I got so much shit. Like, all the boys, like, October, when you're starting to get hyped for ski season, everyone's like, "Oh, what gear do you have? What gear do you have?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm a tele skier." And they're like, "Oh, okay, well, we're probably not going to ski with you." And like, turns out I was pretty decent tele skier. And they're like, "Okay, yeah, you can hang. Like, you can keep up. Cool." Like, once we all got skiing, it was fine. But up until then, like, I was such a kook. And they were
why you gotta hate on me, boys? Yeah, like I said, like, it doesn't matter as long as you're having a good time.
Totally. And like, I was in with all the snowboard kids, and I loved hitting cliffs and jumps, and they were like,
On
okay.
the tallies?
Oh yeah, like
See, that's so impressive to me. That is so impressive to me.
it's so
Like
fun.
we give tele skiers a hard time. I just think because we don't understand it and it scares us. Like I couldn't be a good tele skier. Like I've seen like a 360. I saw this dude huck like a massive 360 on tellies the other day. He was in the air. We're like, what is happening? We're like, oh no, he unclipped from his bindings, thinking it was just like a touring binding, and then he stomped it and then shredded away. We're like, whoa, my god, that was insane. It was so impressive.
I mean, I think I've probably hit like bigger cliffs on my tele skis than I have on my alpine skis.
Why?
I
Why haven't you stepped up your game?
I don't know. I just was like,
Crank up those dins, or just release your heels.
exactly. I mean,
You're about to drop in for a film part and like just release the heel and see what happens. I wonder if you could pull that off. Just freak everybody out. Just like
I don't think so. Those like, I think like the biggest common misconception is it takes a lot of quad strength to bend into a telly turn. Like it is way easier to stomp flat footed, because that was like a big thing with competitions is like if you landed alpine, you had to immediately do a telly turn to like show that you were doing a telly turn.
yeah.
So I don't know.
Versus a hot tub or a back slap
Exactly.
or something, right?
Yeah.
So how long have you been how long has it been since you tellied?
I tell you, I think like once last season I tried it out, and first of all, my boots were massive. I have no idea. I loved my telly boots. I thought they were the most comfortable slippers ever. They were red. They were the T Races, which Scarpa doesn't make anymore. They were pretty stiff, I think, and they were like a size 26, and I'm a size 24.5. And I remember my boot fitters being like, "This isn't your size." I was like, "They're comfortable." I skied them for 6 years. So I skied them last year, and I was swimming. Like I was like having to like grip with my toes. Like, I don't know how I
Like
did
running
this.
in like when you're running in flip flops or
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh my God, I was ridiculous.
And then so did you compete on tellies too?
I did. So that's like what the high school telly team they did, because there was a whole like telly scene of competitions, big mountain comps. Crested Butte had the extremes every year. And I remember seeing like guys who are big alpine skiers now, like Dylan Crossman.
I know Dylan.
Yeah, incredible telly skier. I don't know if he does anymore.
I don't know if he did. I met him at Alta, and he kind of showed me around Alta. We skied around Alta with him. I just kind of followed him. He wasn't on tellies
No,
that
he's
day,
definitely an alpine skier now. I don't know if he's dabbled with it, but yeah, so we went to do the Crested Butte Extremes. I crashed my first year. And then I kind of like, you did it with high school, and then in college, it kind of fizzled out, the telly competition world. I did like the Bridger goalie free ride on my tellies, and everyone did on their alpines. And then my senior year of nursing school, Stefan Riundow, and his other name is Frenchie. He's a French Canadian, lives up in Revelstoke now. He put on a series, and so there were 4 stops: Grand Targhee, Alpine Meadows, Crested Butte, and then maybe there was just 3. And then anyway, the top 3 women and the top 3 men, you won a trip to Alaska. So they like paid for us to go.
So you won the trip to Alaska?
So I won the trip to Alaska. I got 2nd overall. Grand Targhee had a comp every year. I'm going to toot my own horn. I got first 5 times. So that was pretty cool. It's like my biggest like
cool.
competition history record.
That's awesome.
But yeah, we went to Alaska, and it was like, that's what opened my eyes to like the free skiing world, was that trip to Alaska. I was like, this is incredible. I was like,
when was that?
That was in 2011. And so we went to, have you ever heard of Tailgate, Alaska?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
was planning on going up there a few years ago, and then unfortunately a friend of mine passed away who was going to go with me, and we never really made it happen.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It happens. But so you went to Tailgate. Were you there the whole time?
We were there for like a week. It was super bad weather. I think we like made waffles a lot, and cooked a lot of food. I studied. I was probably the only person with textbooks up there. I had my big med-surg nursing textbook that was like 1,000 and some pages. We did 2 runs in the heli, and then we went to Girdwood, and we went on this like alpine touring helicopter. We volleyed our skis to like the
the feet or whatever you
like
call
the
them.
feet of the helicopter, and
Why can't we know the name
I
of those?
don't know. And they dropped us off
Helicopter
a
feet, yeah.
glacier. It was the coolest thing.
Sick.
And I was like, this is like ski touring and free ride and big mountains. It was just, I think, the start of it all for me, like mentally.
Yeah. So that was like 2011, and then right after that is when you like clipped in.
Nope.
Fixed it. No. So what was the transition into like where you are now?
Well,
That's
so
what I'm curious about.
K2 like picked me up on their women's alliance. In I think 2012, Alyssa Clark, she ran the K2 Women's Alliance, and I got a free pair of skis from her and whatnot. And I would help them with like some demo events. And I was like, Alyssa, like, how do I be like Amy Ingebrigtsen or McKenna Peterson? Like, how do I get to that level? And she's like, well, you tele ski. So it's just like a harder market. I was like, oh, no.
So it came down to sales, right? Like they need you to help us sell stuff, but nobody's buying tellies.
I mean, kind of.
You could have been like, let's grow the industry again. We'll start with me.
Yeah. No, and so she had sent me a pair of alpine boots. It was when I moved to Salt Lake. So that was in 2013, like maybe spring of 2014. And she sent me a pair of when K2 had just started making alpine boots, and I tried it, and I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, I remember how to do this.
Do you remember putting it on and being like, ugh, these are gonna suck?
Yeah, kind of. And like, I remember my boyfriend at the time, like, took a few photos of me, and I was like actually kind of decent at making like a social media photo turn.
The one turn wonder.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, like maybe I can get somewhere. And like, I think from there, it just like slowly propelled and progressed. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get a pair of boots that like, I have dialed and like skis. And I think from there, I went to like Solomon as an ambassador the next, maybe 2 years later. Or a year
How do you find like all those years of telly set you up for alpine skiing? Did you find like it helped?
I think so.
Or what was the transition like?
I think that, I mean, looking back on it, the transition seemed really seamless. And I think like the way that I tele-skied and kept up with mostly alpine, Alta had a great telemark scene. There was so many tele-skiers. So it was a lot of fun, but I kept up with the alpine skiers. I skied the same stuff. And I think the way that I tele-skied, which maybe sounds weird, is like it transitioned well to my alpine skiing. Like it just translated well. I think like, because I kind of had a racer style on my tele skis. And so I think I just like
the hard charging style.
Yeah. And like, I knew from being a kid growing up ski racing, I knew the dynamics of the turn, and I don't know. I just remember it being pretty seamless, and then like just the whole ski world propelling forward from there.
That's cool. So you kind of, dipping your toes in, kind of balancing school and skiing. How did you end up getting connected with MSP? Because you are in the brand new MSP movie, HUCK YEAH.
I like remember that day last fall, like so vividly. I cried after I got off the phone with Ben. It's like, this is real.
So how did that come? And then you get to ski with the Amy Ingebrigtsens and the McKenna Petersons.
I haven't really gotten to ski with them yet. I mean, I got to.
Well, in theory, you're on the same movie, if that counts, right? Doesn't McKenna live in Idaho near you?
She is based out of here. We have yet to really ski together, which is crazy. I think we did like one day of shooting photos last winter, and that's it. I do have to say my all-time lady hero, though, I'm going to give a shout out, is Rachel Burks. And I did ski with her last year at Alta, and she is the most fun. And I remember like grinning ear to ear all day skiing with her. Oh, she's just such a hard charger and such positive energy. But anyway, MSP, I would have to give most of my props to Hoji. I like kind of talked to him about filming and like, how do I get into this? And him and I skied together a couple times. And I think he pushed like Arc'teryx marketing to be like, hey, like get her in. She's good. Like, and I think it was a lot of him. His word of mouth. And then Arc'teryx and Atomic's word of mouth. But yeah, Ben called me last October and was like, hey, it's Ben from MSP. Like, we'd love to talk to you about filming this season. And I was just like, what? Me?
Pardon me?
Because I saw my first Warren Miller. I was kind of like not in the scene when I was a kid. I saw, my first Warren Miller age 12, and I was like, I want to do that. That's like what I want to do. And I loved jumping off of things. And I didn't know, like, I didn't have a plan for getting there, but I like remember vividly like seeing my first ski movie and was like, that's my dream. And it's been on, like, I write down my goals for like my
You have a dream vision board?
Yeah, I have like a vision board. It's like a little web that's I have a planner, a little notebook. And it was on there. It was like, I want to film. And that phone call, I like got off the phone and I was like shaking and tearful. I was like, is this real? Is this really happening? And then, yeah, that was awesome. I didn't expect it to even unfold. I was like, oh, that was like a cool conversation. Like, I hope this happens, like trying not to get my hopes up. And then, when I had heard from Gaffney and Murray over the season, I was like, okay, this is like, actually, this might happen.
That's sweet. And you ended up up here.
I did. That was like
skiing with Guillaume and the Blondes for a little bit.
And that was also like by chance. I was up in like Whistler Pemberton area for an Arc'teryx photo shoot, and they were still like trying to figure out how I would play into the movie and like what my story or part would be. And Michelle McKenna and I, which was like an absolute dream trip, we were supposed to go up to Alaska, and that was going to be like where hopefully our parts were filmed. So that was just also an unreal, like I was so excited about. And then while we were shooting with Arc'teryx, I got an email from Scott that I was going to go up to Terrace, BC with Sam Cooch and Carl Fosfed. And I live here in Sun Valley with Carl. And I was just like, that's incredible, because those guys send, and that will like absolutely push me to send. And so I was super excited about that. And while we were waiting for those trips to happen, Murray was like, hey, like there's a filmer with the Blondes. If you can tag along, that'd be great. And that was like the best 4 days of skiing I think I've had. Like I was like pretty nervous because I don't know, a lot of times girls have, strange dynamics. Girls,
they're the goofiest. They're the goofiest, like most open, friendly, silly, fun people ever.
Totally. And like I remember meeting them in the parking lot, and I was like
before you went skiing for the first day, like you met them, like, okay, let's go ski now. It wasn't like let's hang out for a bit.
No, like I'd never met them, and I was like, I had to get my sled out of my truck in front of these girls, and I was like, I can't, what? Like I was so nervous. And they were so friendly. They like came up and gave me hugs. This is pre-COVID. And they were like, what's up, Lucy? Like, we're so excited to ski with you. And I like kind of felt like I was like stepping on their territory just because they had been filming with Guillaume. And I was like, oh, like here's this new girl, kind of girl number 5 stepping in. And so I was like nervous about that too. But it was like the most, like, it was so carefree and easy, and they were like goofy right off the bat. Like I felt like we got along. Like
it's amazing how your own expectations or your assumptions can really hold you back. Hey, do you know what I mean? Like what you just explained is the exact opposite of what they are. And
I know.
and it's funny too, because this is their first year really of filming, and like they're basically in the same position that you are.
Totally.
Right? Like they've been skiing and doing their own thing and trying to figure this, that, and that out for a while, and then they kind of got their big break, and same thing as you. Totally. It's like the timing's kind of on par, right? But because you kind of knew who they were, and it was like, oh, you're gonna go meet up with the Blondes. You're like, oh, the Blondes. Oh my God, like what's happening? It's really fascinating to me how people have those assumptions and views, and then they realize, oh, that doesn't mean a thing.
No, it doesn't. And I'm like, I, yeah, it was nothing what I expected skiing with them. And like, I was like, oh, these girls huck and they all know how to snowmobile. And I have a snowmobile. I don't really know how to snowmobile, but I have one. And I was like, but I just remember like right off the bat, like they were like the camaraderie, like, you know, my sled would overheat or I'd get stuck and like they were right there to help me. And I was like really thinking, I was like, okay, it's the four of them and then me. But really, I just felt like I was like they welcomed me into the group right away, which was
You're
so
part of the
kind.
team, right?
Yeah,
like
it
there's
felt like it. And it was just like, I remember like calling my family afterwards and being like, this was like the best day ever. Like they're the nicest girls. Like they're hilarious. Like I mean, they are so funny
they're so
and like
ridiculous. They're
unintentionally
so
funny.
yeah,
Like they're
yeah,
just
like
ridiculous.
they are
Like
ridiculous
I
in
remember
the best
laughing at
way.
Emily every single morning. She didn't have her coffee lid closed in her duffel bag with like her boots and all her gear on the back of her sled. And every morning she'd open her bag and be like, oh no. And like her boots would be wet. And like, then she'd just put them on. And like, God, just so funny. And like, they're like, you know, so great with each other. Like, they, you know, like, what's the word? Like, prop each other up. Like, they're just so stoked for each other, which is
They're
so,
each other's biggest. They're all
yeah,
each other's biggest fan, right? There's no
exactly.
ego with that crew at all. Like there's no ego. Like they're
Fun.
like, and like I said, like they're skiing because they love it, and they're working together. Again, they love each other, and they have a great time, and they just are working towards something. Like we had them on the show last year, and I was kind of asking them about what would happen if one of you got bigger and all this kind of stuff, and they're like, whatever, man. Like it's not even something they really worry about, not something they think about. They're very go with the flow.
Totally.
You know what's happening right now, and how much fun can we have while we're doing it.
Totally. Which, I mean, that, like I said just a minute ago, like girls are hard and sometimes there is, I don't know about guys, but I know girls, like sometimes there is ego and it's like we're just different personalities and sometimes more drama. And with them, it was zero drama, zero ego. We were there because we loved skiing. You know, we were stoked for each other. Like someone did a trick, which they do so many tricks, which is super inspiring. They were stoked. Someone hit a big cliff. They were stoked. Like, you know, pumping each other up. It was awesome. It was really good energy.
Have you found, like, I know you were just alluding to, like, you know, sometimes girls, you never know what to expect, that sort of thing. Have you actually ever encountered that sort of a sentiment or those kind of attitudes with girls in skiing, though?
No.
No, right?
No, I
It's
think
just
like y'all.
yeah, skier girls, they understand.
Yeah.
Like they're all in this together, and they know that, you know, let's just have a good time. You know, in real life, maybe in like the nursing cliques
Yeah.
or something like that, maybe you'll find that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Like there's a competition, but that's not something I've ever encountered in
No.
the years that I've been doing this show or people that I've met. I've never really met anybody other than like an actual competition, but like there doesn't seem to be any competition or any rivalry or anything like that when it comes to skiing. It's just good vibes. Like I'm stoked for you.
Mhm.
Go do it again bigger,
Mhm.
you know?
No, I actually have never personally either. I mean, I get along with everyone. I even in the work world, like there isn't anyone that I don't get along with. Um,
There's probably people you don't like though, but you
I
still get
mean,
along with
maybe
them.
there's a few, but like, no, the ski world, like I think there's like that initial like, oh, what's this girl like? And you like, you know,
That's what what's that girl like? What?
yeah.
Right? She's just
But
chiming
no,
in.
there's none of that in the ski world. Everyone, like the camaraderie in the ski world between girls, boys and girls is incredible. Like we all have each other's backs. We all have very similar goals and very similar mindsets, and it's awesome. It's a
That's
good
awesome.
family. It's a good community.
Do you want to grab her?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
No, you're all good. That's why we have two cameras. We can edit it.
Squirrel.
Yes.
Oh.
Hi, wrestler. What's happening, bud? And she's like, all right, now get me out of here.
Not into it. He's filthy too. He's
Well,
awful.
that's awesome. And so I'm actually hosting the MSP premiere. If people are listening to this later today, that's why I wanted to get you on the movie, because I figured, hey, if I'm going to be promoting this Whistler premiere, we might as well have an athlete on it. Then Tanya and Emily are coming. Cooch is driving out from Nelson tonight to go see the show. Abna lives here. I think Hoji's quarantining out in the backcountry lodge or something, so I don't know where he is. He's out somewhere. And then Janelle was firefighting in California or Oregon, so she's quarantining back in Revy, so she can't come out, unfortunately. But have you seen the movie yet?
I have seen the movie, and I wish I was there with that whole crew you just listed, because it is going to be a fun premiere for you guys. Sun Valley hosted a premiere like 3 weeks ago now, I think. It was outside on the lawn, and I think I blacked out. Like, I don't remember it because I was so excited. And then I watched it again in solitude, and they did like a drive-in thing with my sister, and it was awesome. It was great to like see it again.
You finally, you achieved one of your life goals.
Yeah.
You said, like, when you were 12, I want to do that. Yeah. And like, what was that feeling like when you were sitting in this theater, or where was it? Was it in the theater, the one that you were able to, the first one?
No,
I don't outdoors?
think any of the North America ones. I mean, like the lower 48, the United States ones are in theaters. I think they're all outdoor drive-in.
Mm-hmm. So what was it like for you seeing your name, the music, the video panning? Like, was it like the greatest moment of your life? Did you cry?
Excited. I mean, I do remember like the Sun Valley one, and I was like, I had no idea what it was going to be, because I really didn't think I had any shots. I knew for sure I had like 2 decent lines, but because all my trips got cut short, I like didn't think that I had really filmed anything worthy of a movie, which I can do better for sure next year. But I remember like how they incorporated it, and I was like, that is like, even the song, like it was all very me. And I was like, it felt unreal, but also felt like, I don't know. It still doesn't feel real. Like, it doesn't feel like I was in a ski movie.
That's cool. And are you like, did it like light the fire? You're like, oh, I want to do more next year.
Like, especially Michelle's part. God, she like it, just her skiing and her airs. I was like, I can do better. Like, I want to do better, and I want to do more.
Oh, do you want to do better for yourself? Like, not better than Michelle?
Oh, sorry. What was your question?
No, you're like, I want to do, like you said, Michelle, and like, I want to do better. I'm like, oh, you want to do better than Michelle?
No, not better than Michelle, but like,
there's that cattiness that you were alluding to before. There's that. Oh, so maybe it's within.
No cattiness. I do not.
Did you hear that, Michelle Parker? She just called you out.
I did not.
I can't believe you're a pro skier, Michelle Parker.
No, correction. Like,
I'm so much better than you.
Can do better for me, my part. I only hope to someday be somewhat close to that level of skiing.
I know, I'm just teasing. So do you find that just being out for those 4 days with Guillaume and the Blondes, and being able to see kind of how it works and like how things set up, and just going through the motions, like, I'm sure you're kind of nervous those couple days and hesitant on what lines you want to pick and that sort of thing. Like, I can only understand, like, because you said walking into it, you're like, even though they made you feel comfortable, like when at times to perform, you're still like, oh, like, what line do I choose, or how do I ski this? And there's probably a little hesitation.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of hesitation. And I also felt like I had said, like, I kind of felt like I was not stepping on toes, but I just felt like I was, because I had 2 trips coming up. And so I thought that was like my big opportunity. And this was like a great place to like warm up. And like, God, what a place to warm up with those girls. That was perfect. But like, I kind of felt, and I hope they think this, that like I let them choose lines first, and like I didn't like be like, oh, I'm hitting that air. Like I like kind of felt it out and was like, okay, they're hitting that, so what would work for me? And that was like hard to figure out. And then I remember when Tanya did that, I wish I knew what the name of the peak was, but that big line following Sam Cooch, I was like, oh, like this is like what making a ski movie is like. Like it was just, I was like, she's actually going up to ski that? Like It's like, okay, now I'm ready. Like, let's go do this. And then that was the last day, I think.
And then it got shut
And
down.
then everything got shut down.
COVID came and changed the world. And then, so as this was happening, like, you could hear all the rumblings. And you're like, I don't know if I got to leave the country. And I'm sure that's kind of working in. And when that was all happening, in the back of your mind, you're a nurse. You're like, am I going to have to go to work right now? Is that like what was going through your head when you were like, not sure if your trip's going to get shut down? Am I going to have to go do work? Like, what was that all about?
Actually, nursing was like not on my brain at all. Like, I was staying with Hoji and Jen, which was super nice.
Really? It's like they live a block away from me.
Yeah, I was staying with them. It's so homey there. Like, they're so welcoming, and it was a great place to stay. And then like things kind of started getting shut down, and I remember because that huge windstorm came through Whistler, and it just like
killed everything,
like
ruined the whole mountain.
Like meant, like, I don't know, it felt like it coincided because like we had 4 days of perfect skiing, and then this massive windstorm came through and took away all the snow in the Alpine.
Ruined everything.
And then like 3 days later, borders closed. I was like, okay, I don't know if that was a coincidence or not. Like, but I remember like debating with Hoji, like, do I stay? Like, is the trip going to happen? Do I go home? Like, are we still going to Alaska? Like, I just remember things being really up in the air, and I was like, okay, well, like, I'm not skiing up here because the skiing wasn't like super great. I think Hoji and I went touring one time, and then I went up on Whistler with Jen right before everything shut down. And so I was like, well, I should probably like at least get home to Idaho, just so I'm home if like the world does shut down. And I remember like going to the market to get food, like the one right across the street from you guys.
Nesters.
Yeah, Nesters. Yeah. And I was going to get dinner for Eric and I, and because Jen was at a comp that had like just almost gotten shut down. And there's like no food left. And I was like, whoa, this is real. Like, there is no toilet paper. There's no meat, nothing. And I was like, okay, this is real. And then I remember talking to like Gaffney, and then I talked a bit to Michelle, and then McKenna was also, I think Michelle was up in Whistler as well because she was filming with Tatum. And I just remember like being like, okay, what are you going to do? Like, if you leave, I'll leave. And I think she was in the same boat. And then I think like literally the day before the borders closed, we're like, okay, let's go home. And it was because usually that border is pretty busy, like the one closest to Vancouver. And
the Peace Arch.
Yeah, I was the only car, like the only car. And I was like, okay, this is weird. Like, shit is happening. And then I remember I went to Trader Joe's like I usually do right before Seattle, and stayed with my friends in Seattle. And Seattle had been shut down for
beforehand. Yeah, it was before Vancouver even.
I can't remember how long. And so I was like, okay, wow, this is real. Like, I've been, in the snow globe in La La Land, like not thinking about nursing. And I was like, okay, this is like the real deal. And then I remember I was leaving Seattle, driving through like middle of nowhere, Oregon. And I got a phone call from one of the nurses I work with. And she's like, are you coming home? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, actually on my way. Why? She's like, because we need you. Like, we need you to work. I think there was an event at the hospital, nothing bad, but they just didn't know when COVID first hit, like, if people got exposed, if they were immediately going to be symptomatic or they were going to immediately get it. And so there were a lot of nurses out, and they were really short staffed, and they were like, we need you to work. So I think I worked like literally the next day. And then I remember like when I first drove home, I was like, oh yeah, Washington was weird. Canada was kind of strange. Like, what's going on here in Idaho? And like talking, with my roommates and my boyfriend at the time, and being like, yeah, this is weird. And then I went to work, and I was like, oh, this is like the real deal. Like, people are really sick. And they're getting sick fast, and there's not much we can do right now. And it really hit. And I was like, okay, like, and then there was plenty of shifts to pick up, and I just like went straight into nursing. And it was just like, again, like kind of a seamless transition. Like, all right, Like, and I felt so grateful and so lucky that I had something to do. I'm not good with free time. Like, I can't sit still. I don't know what to do with myself when I have even an hour in a day sometimes. Um, and so I just like felt so lucky that I had all this work when there were like there was a lot of people without work. And I was just like, here I am going straight from a ski career into another career, without even like thinking twice about it. So I felt so lucky, and it was crazy.
It still is. Like, so
Yeah.
can you explain a little bit about like, so I know there's a lot of people that are worried about COVID, and then obviously down in the States specifically, there's a lot of people like, oh, it's not real or it's not a big deal. Like your president mocks it forever, then he catches it, and then he's like, well, look, I survived. I'm like, yeah, I bet you almost died, bud. But you know what I mean? Like it's serious, right?
It's
Like
serious.
like I haven't really spoken to many people who are right on the front lines dealing with it day after day.
Yeah.
Like, are you afraid for your own personal safety?
I'm not. I think I feel very lucky. I mean, I've seen a lot of really healthy people get sick. I mean, at this point, I have not yet contracted it. I haven't had any symptoms. I had an antibody test. I didn't have any antibodies. And I even had a COVID test because I had a surgery earlier this summer and I've been negative. So I'm not scared for my own health. I think I'm lucky in that, like, I think I'm not invincible. So, I mean, if I catch it and did get sick, that could happen. But I just think with like the protective measures at the hospital and how I distance myself outside of the hospital, I think I'm okay. But no, it's real deal. And people are getting very sick. And it's scary and it hits people fast. It hits everyone a little bit differently. And it's coming back. So it was like in Sun Valley, at least, Blaine County was their infection rate per our population was higher than New York City, which was the highest infection rate in the country at the time. And it's because not because, but I think in large part, we have a lot of second homeowners from California and Washington. And when the virus hit, everyone fled to their second homes here. And, we're in more largely populated areas. And I think, kind of brought it in our small hospital, really felt the weight of all of that. We actually closed down our hospital for, I think, a couple weeks. The surgery area closed. And that was the first, kind of the first time like, oh, I might not have a job because I work in the surgery area as well as the emergency room. And so, yeah, we were just inundated. Like the ER was so busy with real sick people for a couple weeks. People who, I took care of that were seemingly like healthy, but needed to be admitted to the hospital. Like they weren't super, super sick. And then within days they were on a ventilator, or even within hours they were on a ventilator. And so that's when it really hit home. And then in May, like, I think people were really obeying and listening to the stay-at-home orders. And so the hospital got pretty slow. And that's when I kind of felt more comfortable to go skiing again and be out in the backcountry again. But then all summer we've seen like one or two cases here and there, nothing like super sick. But I think now that laws are lifting or like things are getting a little bit
people are getting complacent,
and people are getting complacent. I myself, like, I'm complacent sometimes too. I'm a big hugger and I see friends and I just want to give them a big hug. And like, we all have that need to be social and to be around people. And yeah, we're not at the bars, but we're still like doing, post-ride beers together and not being like 6 feet apart with masks. So I think we're definitely becoming a little bit complacent. And the hospitals, like, I think we're seeing more and more over the last week or two.
Flu season's coming, right?
Yeah, flu season's
holiday season's coming.
Holiday season's coming. I think, yeah, schools are open again. Like, just there's more people in smaller spaces, and we're seeing it come again. And that's like another reality check for myself. It's like, okay, like, it's still here. It's still making lots of healthy people sick. And it's like, it's hit close to home a few times. Both my parents had it and my little brother. And
really,
my mom, had she never was hospitalized, but, a pretty significant cough and pneumonia from it. And she's a healthy lady. So And I've seen other, friends whose grandparents have gotten it, or, even a nurse and a lab tech that I work with that were both healthy got it and were on ventilators, and they recovered, but it's just like, it's real. It's not something fake. It's not something, the Chinese government made up as it's a real disease, and it's making people sick. And so, I probably should practice what I preach, and I do wear a mask and I do social distance, but as much as you can, I feel like everyone should continue, because I don't think there's any stopping it until we have like a vaccine.
It's not going away for a while.
No,
Hey,
it's not.
do you have any like suggestions or any tips from being a nurse yourself, other than what people have told us and what we hear on the news and by our like local health authorities and whatnot? Do you have any like specific messages or specific tips or suggestions or anything from you as a nurse who's been there?
I mean,
Who's
as a
seen
nurse
it?
who's been there, like, it's the real deal. So believe like all the guidelines that your, governments and health departments are putting out, but, wash your hands. Like, it's simple things that we can do to, like, not necessarily, totally protect ourselves and prevent it, but that we can like practice that will help prevent it. And that's washing your hands, like wearing a mask in public places. If you do feel sick, stay home and like let your friends know, like, hey, I'm not feeling great. Like, maybe, you should separate. I think just because it's like it's hitting people. It's not picking like the unhealthy people or the sick people or the old people. It has like no path of like, this is who it's
Yeah, it's
infected.
funny. It's like it's almost like a gene thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like it just affects certain bodies or certain genes or certain people with certain makeups different than others, right?
And I think, I've heard things like your blood type, you might get more sick than a different blood type, or, obviously if you have pre-existing conditions like an asthma or a lung thing, because it does really attack your lungs, then you're more exposed to it. But yeah, it's not like picking a specific line of people. And so that's kind of probably the scariest thing about it.
Right. So just be careful because it could get you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the ski season this year with like
I
mountains
know.
and their. I know like Vail put restrictions and you have to do for Whistler specifically, and you have to reserve or I guess book your day.
Mm-hmm.
But I was speaking with someone that worked for Vail, and they're like, well, I'm like, what if it's a Thursday, right? I get up and I'm a last minute procrastinator. I'll usually edit and post the episode like Thursday morning, and say I'm done at 2 and I want to go out for last laps, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, is it gonna be full? Am I gonna be able to go for a couple laps at 2? She's like, I think so, but I think a lot of it just has to do with like COVID tracing, right? Just being responsible. So if someone has it, they can be like, oh, this person was skiing on this day, and then all these other people, they can let
Mm-hmm.
them know. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
it'll be interesting. But I think fortunately, like with skiing, as like why I didn't think it would shut down initially is like we're wearing masks for the most part. Like I think most people these days have a buff. If it's not for sun protection, it's for snow protection. And um yeah, you sit next to each other on a chairlift, and I feel like that can be, you know, more easily
Was it
moderated.
was it a lot because I know they shut down the backcountry here
Hmm.
because they didn't want to overwhelm
Hmm.
they didn't want to overwhelm the ERs. So like if people are catching it and getting sick and the ER's getting loaded up and someone's in the backcountry and gets caught in a slide or breaks an arm or
Hmm.
something as simple as that, right? Like they don't want to have that person in there. Like
Totally.
we don't have time to deal with this right now when that we're flooded with COVID zombies.
Right. And that's like, I remember that's how we felt in March and like early April. It was like, excuse my language, but you were the asshole if you were in there with like a blown knee from skiing, when we're super, like, it takes a lot to take care of a COVID patient. I mean, you are fully gowned up. You can't leave that room until, I mean, you can leave the room, but like it's just a whole process. So it's kind of exhaustive to resources. And so it's like if you go in there with a blown knee, like you're just taking up a bed that could be used for someone sick. And like ER.
So are you wearing like a hazmat style suit, or like what do you have? What's your PPE as a nurse?
It's God, it's ever changing. And, I definitely feel protected with our hospital protocols, but normally in the past, like a surgical mask, those disposable masks that a lot of people have, when we used to have a patient in isolation for other contagious diseases, it would be a mask every time you entered and exited. Every time you entered the room, you put on or exited the room, you put on a new mask, because that mask that you were wearing was potentially contaminated. Well, now, like, I think with PPE shortages and everything they're finding out, like, you have one mask for the day unless it's visibly soiled. And so when you go into a COVID room, you're supposed to wear an N95, which is a specific type of mask that doesn't let any aerosolized things go in or out. And you have to be fit for that. If you're not fit for that, you wear what's called a PAPR, which is this like big hood. It has like a hose to an air vent battery pack and has continuous airflow. And so you're wearing, your scrubs and then your N95 or your PAPR and then a surgical mask. You have eyewear, you have gloves, and you have these like super hot yellow gowns that are just like kind of a funky material.
Hot as in temperature, or they look?
Oh no, not hot as in style. No, there's like nothing. There's nothing hot about what nurses wear to work.
Except, I don't know, man. Those
Halloween costumes are quite deceiving. Yeah. That is not what I
little nurse fantasies.
Yeah,
that's a conversation for a different time. But I bet wearing all that stuff gets like I serve tables and I have to wear a mask, and I find like halfway through the shift, I'm like, get this thing off my face. Like, I can only imagine like you guys doing 12-hour shifts, what that is like. And like, luckily we just wear the N95s when we're in the COVID rooms, but like, wearing a mask for 12 hours, but even wearing a couple months ago, we were doing CPR and wearing all of that, and it is hot and you get really uncomfortable. Like, obviously you have to think, you don't think of it at the time, but like it's uncomfortable and overwhelming, I bet too. Like, I just probably get cranky and right. Yeah. So it's quite a get up. And so I'm curious, like that's a good point that you raised with what the ski season will look like with COVID. Like, I think it's a lot more manageable. I think they have protocols in place. I think they have like a good idea of how much PPE they have right now, and what we should be wearing. And I think they know how to manage it a little bit better. So I think that some of that will help out skiers being hurt in the hospitals, because it's like something, for a while we had a specific part of the ER that the COVID patients went to, and then everyone else went to different beds, just so we kind of kept them separate. So I think that's definitely something to consider when you're out in the backcountry, because I think also everyone and their mom will be out in the backcountry this year. I don't know about Whistler, but it's April touring gear sales just went through the roof. It's really bad. It's madness. With the people, like there's so much, you were here last year and you understand how much terrain is available just off the lift, or how simple it is to get there, and the amount of people that in the last 3 or 5 years, the amount of people that have been going back there has increased exponentially, but also the amount of people that have no idea what they're doing with regards to like safety and protocol and equipment. It's kind of freaking me out. I'm hoping to do a series of episodes, or at least an episode later this year, where we kind of highlight some of that and see if we can find a way to kind of promote some AST 1 and 2s at the very least, and maybe see if we can give away like a beacon probe shovel package, that sort of thing, like just to get people thinking about it more and into it more, but that's a whole nother discussion. I think that's a great idea. I myself am I'm taking 3 classes this spring or this early winter, and I just hope that other people are in that same mindset, because be a leader. Now you're a figure, a public figure in skiing. You're now a skiing celebrity. Know before you go. Get educated. Yeah. Set that example. Buy an avalanche class before you buy a setup. My dad did not let me have my beacon
until I took an avalanche class in college.
What, your graduation
my
beacon?
graduation gift. He showed it to me, but I was not allowed to have it until I had an avalanche class, which, God, he's a smart man. I think he'll listen to this and he'll love that, but that's how it should be. Like I have quite a few friends who are, super competent skiers, and they acquire beacons, but have never taken an avalanche class. And I think like before you buy a beacon, you should take an avalanche class or some form of something, whether it's like an online course that Mark Smiley did or something to like.
Something. Yeah. You listening to that, people?
Yeah.
Sign up for an AST1 if you haven't done it. Sign up for an AST2 if you've done your AST1. If you don't think that you remember your AST2, do it again. Sign up for your full week-long ski ops course. I did a ski ops course years ago, and it's time to refresh. But I loved it. It was so fun. Mm-hmm. It was fascinating to learn. You're out there, you get to practice. And practice with your beacon. If you've done all those things too, spend a day with your buddies and do like a little dig practice. Do some beacon searches. Even if you don't live, like if there's no snow around, just go where there's a bunch of leaves on the ground. Just put your beacon in a bag, put like a piece of wood over top of it and bury it in some leaves and get your friends to search on the leaves or go to the beach or whatever, Mm-hmm. Just practice, because we don't want you people to end up in Lucy Sackbauer's ER room and she's going to give you the stink eye because you should know better.
I won't. I'll give you the stink eye, but I'll also take good care of you.
They wouldn't be able to tell if you're giving you the stink eye. They just probably think you're uncomfortable under all that equipment.
That's true.
So you, before you go, obviously it's a good opportunity to talk about your sponsors and the people that have supported you thus far. Fire away.
So I'd like to thank Atomic Skis and Arc'teryx and Wild Rye.
Like an actual rye?
Oh no, Wild Rye, all-female mountain bike and base layer company.
Sorry, I was like, yeah, you got a whiskey company?
Oh God, yes. Any whiskey company is listening. Maybe High West.
High West, I was gonna say, yeah. I got some at the Powder Awards a bunch of years ago as a gift, and whew, delicious.
I think I drank too much whiskey probably at the Powder Awards. That I don't know if I need a whiskey sponsor.
It's always good.
It is always good. But yeah, I would not be here today without them. They're a super great family and they've supported me in making literally my dreams come true, as corny as that sounds. So thank you, Atomic Skis and Arc'teryx.
What have you got? I know this is pretty much like nobody knows what's going on, but do you have any plans or goals or ideas moving forward for this season coming up?
I have some ideas scheming. I have some kind of big objectives here around Idaho and Sun Valley that I would love, obviously condition dependent and COVID dependent, trying to achieve just some bigger lines and traverses in some of our local mountains.
It's going to be a lot of local edits this year, I think. I was saying that the other day. I think there's going to be a lot of like isolated local ski edits. We'll just see, and I'm looking forward to see where the best zone is.
I know, I am too.
Right? Who are the best riders? But if they're all kind of, if like in theory you're all on the same level of riding,
mm-hmm.
who is gonna showcase their home the best? I'd like to kind of put together a competition.
I was just gonna say that should be a competition. Like maybe you should get things rolling for next spring as far as like a submit your own hometown edit. Has to be filmed, within 15, 20 miles within home.
Yeah, sure.
And
what's that like? So like 30 to 50 kilometers. If you're out here.
times 2. Is it 2? No, 2 point. Yeah.
2.2, I think. No, that's weight. That's pounds to kilograms. 2.2. It's 1.6 kilometers to a mile.
Okay.
So it's like one. It's like So like 1.5 is like 3 ish.
So yeah, within. Oh, GoPro just died.
Yeah, it's all good. We got the best part. I've been keeping an eye on it too. It lasted a little longer than I expected.
Oh, that was impressive. Oh, it's hot.
Ooh, yeah, it is. Just like this conversation.
I know we haven't gotten into any dirt or anything steamy or hot.
All right, stay tuned for the bonus episode, the bonus features. I didn't know you wanted to get steamy. Let's charge that thing up and get going. Well, I think maybe that's a good signal for us to wrap it up for the first conversation. It was a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for saving lives.
Oh, my pleasure, literally.
Do you have any messages for the people out there?
Be safe and have fun. Most importantly, have fun and get a lot of snow in your face this season.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll talk soon. Next time, hopefully it'll be in person.
I hope so. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, my pleasure. I want to come down. I'm kind of bummed because I've been planning on like a U.S. road trip for this winter coming up. I was gonna hopefully either borrow a friend's like pickup camper, or just find places to crash. I was gonna drive into the interior of BC, head down to Montana, and then maybe cut back through Idaho and then down. Like, it's gonna happen though eventually.
It'll happen eventually.
I don't see the border opening anytime soon, but when it does,
looks
like you got a nice comfy couch back there.
What's that?
Yes, I said, looks like you got a nice comfy couch back there.
I don't have a couch, but I think my kitchen floor fits an air mattress. So
yeah,
I have a floor here.
You don't have a couch? What do you do after a long day of the working at the hospital there?
Well, I have a love seat coming. It gets here in like a week or two. There's not enough room for a couch. I have a Murphy bed, so if you just get right to it, fold the bed down and you're already in bed. That's where I go after a long day.
There you go. Get home and crash.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And we will talk to you again soon.
Sounds great.
Peace.
You've been listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. This has been a Redmark Media production.